Hi, everyone. This is Laura from Learning Equality, and I'm excited to share some information on Kolibri and how it can benefit learners in Uganda. I had planned to join live for this, but I ended up having to travel today, so I appreciate your flexibility in watching this recording instead. And what I have done is to share my email address on the last slide so that we can connect and address any questions that may come from today. So starting with some background, our team at Learning Equality has been working for almost 9 years now, designing and creating quality learning experiences through educational technology for those without the internet. Our focus is on the nearly half of the world that is still offline. So even for many connected learners, expensive and unreliable networks mean that consistently learning online is not possible. And in response, we address barriers that are related to infrastructure, discovery of relevant learning resources, and limited digital literacy for blending technology into different kinds of learning environments. Our solutions focus on offline first access and distribution without the internet. So we design solutions that are adaptable to a particular learning context and then supported to scale through a kind of do-it-yourself adoption model. And as part of this adaptability, we are focused on making openly licensed resources relevant, on supporting educators at every step of the intervention, and working within existing infrastructure when possible. And lastly, our data collection methods are designed to scale with limited connectivity so that data that you may not normally be able to receive from those without the internet is now possible to collect. With this approach, we've now reached millions of learners across more than 210 countries and territories, including in Uganda, where without any of our direct support, we've estimated that it's the 8th highest country globally known of unique installations. And our current efforts are focused around Kolibri here. So this is our adaptable set of open source software and openly licensed materials. And it's all designed for offline first teaching and learning. Kolibri can run on a variety of hardware types that are often already available in local schools. And I'll show you some examples later of how that hardware setup can look. So Kolibri provides access to a curated and openly licensed educational content library, and it's available in a variety of languages in a range of academic and non-academic subject areas and grade levels, but mostly focused on K through 12. Then materials that are drawn from the different sources in the library, along with any additional materials uploaded by users, can be aligned according to relevant national curricular standards using our Kolibri Studio platform. And then relevant sets of the materials can then be kind of seamlessly imported into the offline platform. So we have some simple workflows for managing it and keeping it updated. And these materials can either be updated from the internet, from a USB thumb drive, or from another device over a local network. And one example of this is a series of channels that have been arranged by UNICEF according to the national curriculum. So they have provided materials for secondary curriculum STEM subjects, as well as some pre-primary and primary materials. And then through NEDA, this has also been provided on a national Kolibri server to support at-home learning, particularly during the pandemic. These materials from the Kolibri library can then be accessed by learners offline without the internet. So learners can watch videos, read documents, play games, interact with simulations, and practice using exercises that would then provide them with real-time feedback. So within the platform, learners can also be grouped into classes and then be assigned to specific lessons and quizzes by a teacher. So when you were thinking about how Kolibri might be integrated into your classroom teaching, I wanted to give just one example to help make the picture a little bit clearer. So I'm going to play this video for a second.
Tupo tunakaribiana sana. They are moving. They have very small distance between them, and they are vibrating. Kwa hiyo na small
Okay, so in this video we have Mude, who is a SESMAT trainer and chemistry teacher, and he here is introducing a chemistry lesson on the states of matter, and he's not using any technology for this step. So when we think about blended learning, what I would typically say is to see what's possible with Kolibri and then integrate it where you are comfortable doing so, but not to think of it as trying to replace all parts of a lesson. And for teachers who are less comfortable with technology, I think it helps to ask how something like Kolibri might enhance any existing teaching practices, but reinforcing that it's meant to be adapted to meet your personal needs, and that can look differently for everyone. So just a note there. But then for step 2, after the concept was introduced, the group then opened up Kolibri and engaged with an interactive resource covering the states of matter, which I actually have here. So here's what that resource looks like on Kolibri. It allows learners to explore the different states of matter, so clicking through solids, liquids, gases, and then exploring how the states change with adding pressure and temperature changes. So that was the second component of the lesson. And then the third part was ending with having learners complete a quiz on some of the concepts that they had just learned. So it was kind of a 3-part blended lesson just to get you thinking about what's possible with Kolibri. And then once learners have engaged with a lesson or a quiz, teachers can then go in and track learner progress and maybe identify learners who are struggling or might need additional support. And then we have some tools in Kolibri that can help differentiate students and start to personalize learning. So this is done through a groups function, so teachers can opt to assign materials to individual learners or to a group rather than necessarily the full class. Learning Equality has also developed the openly licensed Kolibri EdTech Toolkit, which contains different pedagogical materials to support blended learning and training of trainers. And this toolkit of resources supports the usage of Kolibri across a variety of learning environments, and it has guides, handouts, training presentations, anything you might need to train your fellow colleagues on Kolibri. But I also know that Isaac has created some other resources himself, some fantastic video modules that are great for learning how to use Kolibri, that are more engaging than these PDFs. So I think those can be shared as well. And in addition to the sample chemistry lesson that I shared, I thought I would also share a couple other options for how Kolibri can look in the classroom. So that chemistry lesson example actually fits in with the rotation model in the middle. If you think about each step as a station in the rotation, but this could also take the form of a class being divided into 3 different groups. So one group working with the teacher, one group working with Kolibri, and then one group doing something else independently. And it can also be used entirely self-paced. So Kolibri has some features for a learner to track their own progress independently, and then to be guided to the next resource in a module. And then lastly, during the pandemic, we've been exploring the at-home model more. So we have an early version of an Android app that our team is focusing on improving this year for larger scale use, but the data syncing in Kolibri has enabled being able to learn from Kolibri on a device at home, and then to bring it back to school to sync data with a teacher's computer. I'll also just share how other countries and organizations have used Kolibri slightly differently based on their needs. So the first image here is from Mexico. They used both a computer lab desktop model as well as one where a laptop and tablets could be moved between classes. The second picture is in India, where they also used a mobile server and tablet setup. Then with UN Women, we built an online hosted Kolibri server where women with the internet could learn at home and then come into kind of in-person education hubs for classes. So it was kind of a non-traditional flipped model. And then lastly, we worked with Vodafone in 6 countries to make Kolibri available free of data charges on Vodafone devices, which is also a more of a self-paced kind of informal learning model on mobile phones. And then because a lot of the examples thus far were a bit higher touch in terms of teachers having a strong role in assigning lessons and quizzes, I also wanted to give you one last example that's a bit lower touch. So in Kakuma refugee camp, they have learning hubs that are open for anyone to come in and access. And the learners there are primarily exploring on Kolibri independently, but then coaches are available to help them find relevant content and to create accounts to track their progress. So we've actually also seen this model in formal schools as well, either through like an after school program or ICT clubs, but more kind of non-formal options outside of the classroom or the class day. So now bringing it back to Uganda to wrap my time up, there have been many motivated adopters of Kolibri here, and the success has really been due to these various factors. A key one, obviously, being UNICEF, who led the initial pilot to set the groundwork for a lot of these other initiatives that have built off of their work, including with HP and ECW. And we have also collaborated with UNHCR for implementation in a number of refugee and host community sites. And they were also integral in building a relationship with SESMAT trainers. Now we are currently launching a new project-based learning program at the primary level with HAF that is including looking at how Kolibri can be integrated with playful learning approaches with specific support for social emotional learning for refugee learners. But my particular role here is largely in supporting community adoption. So, thinking through how to best support teachers like yourselves in having the resources that you need to start using Kolibri and really make it your own. So, my last slide is some resources on getting started. So we have a download page and some documentation, as well as an online demo site if you want to test it out first. And this is all available on our website. And I've added my email address here if there are any questions I can answer, if you want to chat about what's possible in your schools. If you do end up using Kolibri, we are always eager to hear about it and to find ways that we can share your work back with the community. So I'll just, I think, end by saying that I think it's fantastic that this group exists. I have been in contact with Isaac over the last year or so and was more recently introduced to Steve, but these are the real experts who have been using Kolibri and creating impact with it firsthand. So I just want to say thank you for all of the great work that you're doing, and thank you for this opportunity.